So, hello and welcome back to the 12th man weekend again. Big games coming up. Looking forward to them. Hope you are as well. Chelsea Spurs, obviously the big one this weekend. First against third. We're going to get that there in the show. But coming up first, we're going to be looking back at the European results as Liverpool suffer defeat in the Champions League. A blip, yes, but can they bounce back? We're looking at Chelsea and Man City securing qualification. Uh, Manchester United won big in Europe. They took massive control of their group. We're looking back at last night's results in the Europa League as well, as Arsenal and Leicester secure qualification. Spurs take massive steps to their qualification, and Celtic and Dundalk crash out, with Rangers also put themselves in a strong position for qualification. So only one place to start, and that was with Liverpool's shock defeat against Atalanta. Don't think anyone's seen this coming. I spoke about it on the last show, how Liverpool seem to have found their consistency, sorted out their defensive problems, and again, football can be a funny game sometimes. They had a bit of a relapse and beat 2-0, and I have to say, well beat at home, um, which is very unlikely. They didn't even have a shot on target, which is, I don't think any Liverpool fan or football fan could believe. So went down pretty poorly at home. Now looking back at the first game against this team, Liverpool just steamrolled them, beat them 5-0 away from home. I just think it was one of them nights where everything went right for Liverpool and everything probably went wrong for Atlanta, and they missed a few players as well. But they seemed to field a stronger team. Had a few people coming back from injury, including that striker Illich who scored. I thought Gomez and midfield had a really strong game. Liverpool really missed Henderson. I thought they needed someone to control that midfield. Didn't really have it. I think Klopp probably gambled on team selection, left out a few players like Mane and Jota. They didn't really have that cutting edge going forward. Salah came back from COVID, but was he sharp enough? I think Klopp needed to get him game time anyway, but probably a missed opportunity looking back at it. Klopp will feel, because if they had won this game, would have virtually guaranteed them qualification. Now they've got a massive game against Ajax next Tuesday. If they were to slip up in that game, it really put some pressure on them to qualify. Having said that, I do expect them to still qualify from this group. It's a funny type of group because everyone's been beaten Michelin, who Liverpool to play in the last game. So it's almost like against your results against the other two teams in the group is going to be what matters in this group, because everyone's really expected to get them 6 points against Michelin. So it'll be interesting to see if they bounce back. Big game coming up against Brighton as well before that on Saturday. Going to get that, my predictions, but I think it's the type of game Liverpool will really look forward to, in terms of, because Brighton are quite an open, expansive team and they'll give Liverpool chances and they'll probably shoot them. So if Klopp had to pick a game to come back to, this probably will be high on the list. So moving on, Manchester United, massive one, 4-1 victory. Actually topped this on my results. I went for 4-0, so wasn't far away. Really thought United would bounce back. I think these teams like Istanbul, quite strong at home. These Turkish teams, they usually be hard to beat. They always put on a performance from them. They're quite hard to beat away from home. But when they travel, it's a different story. Usually quite poor. I don't know why that is, because it is just a football pitch, but these teams just don't really seem to travel. So against it, and look, there's no doubt about it, Manchester United were really poor in their away game. You was still expecting them to went there and won. But they've got them at home, and I really thought that they would put on a performance, and they did. Fernandez, best player in the pitch, scoring 2 goals. Surprised they didn't take a penalty, but maybe just give it to Rashford to get him a goal. He hasn't scored a goal in the last couple of games. Van de Beek, who had a predicted comeback, played really well from what I hear. Only seen parts of the game, but he did play really well from what I heard. So again, be interested to see if Ollie decides to pick him on Sunday against Southampton, which is a big game. I think my head says he won't. I think this is something that you can see quite a lot happening, where it's clear Ollie didn't really want him. He wasn't his choice of player they wanted to bring in, because he'd be playing him if he did, because we know his qualities. So you almost think that the board went behind his back and got him this player, and he's sort of making a point to the board that he doesn't want him. He wasn't the type of player he wanted. So it's almost like manager against board, and the player suffering. So I think Ollie's he's well skilled. His qualities and what he can bring to the team. He seems to be playing in these Champions League games, and he seems to be playing really well. So it'll be interesting to see if he plays him on Sunday. I don't think he will. United fans are really pressuring on Ollie to play him, but Ollie's going to stick to what he thinks is best, and I can't see him playing. I think he'll go back to the tried and trusted in the Premier League. But United secure qualification now. If they can beat PSG in the next game, or even 2 draws against PSG and Leipzig, will be enough. And I really do expect them to qualify now, because they've got that head-to-head record on PSG and Leipzig, unless they really lose the next 2 games, which I think they'll have enough to get through. So it was a difficult group when they come out, and if United get through this, you have to give Ollie credit, because it wasn't an easy group. If you look at all the English teams across Europe, in the Europa League as well, this is definitely the hardest group, and if there was any English team like to drop out, it would have been Manchester United. But strong position, sitting on 9 points after the 4 games, 3 points clear over PSG and Leipzig. So strong positions. Be interested to see how they get on next week against PSG. But I think they'll be confident going on that, especially since they beat them away from home. So moving on, Man City also got a big one. Massive confidence after needed what confidence boost and one after that result against Spurs. Again, similar to the games they've been playing, a lot of chances they created, but not a lot of goals. Just a 1-0 victory, but it was a domination. I watched this game; they dominated from start to finish, and it would have been a criminal result if they hadn't got the 3 points. Spoke before the game. I thought Foden would come back in, Phil Foden, and he did. He came in probably again one of the best players in the pitch. Scored a really important goal that Man City needed, and it guarantees them qualification as well. I'm fully expecting to top this group. 5 points clear of Porto, maybe 2 games to go. I think it's inevitable they'll top the group. They'll probably go to rest of their star men as well, so they can really focus on the Premier League and try and win them points back. Big games keep coming for Man City. Burnley on Saturday. Again, I'll get to that on my predictions, but again, it's a game they really need to win if they're going to start clawing these points back, because they're not really a team that's just expected to fight for the top four. They're a team that's expected to challenge at the top. So if they're going to do that, they need to start picking up wins after consecutive ones, and that needs to start on Saturday. So the last team to get through in the Champions League was Chelsea. Actually, in the predictions, I topped a 1-1 draw. It looked like it was going to finish that way until the 91st minute, until, where Giroud popped up with a really important goal, which also secured qualification for Chelsea. Again, Giroud, again, he's a player that I think goes under the radar a lot. He's a really important player for any team he's in. I think he always gives something different. They add the team as well. You look at Chelsea, Werner and Abraham, quite similar, pacey players. Giroud, he's third choice at the minute, but he's the type of player he's great to have in your squad. He can mix it up. I thought at Arsenal he was unfairly treated. He's almost the type of player I think Arsenal could do with now. He's somebody different. He's great in the air. He can link up play really well, and he can create chances for our players. So it's interesting to hear him say that he's looking for more first-team football, because he obviously wants to make the French squad. I think Deschamps has obviously told him that if he's going to be in the French squad, he needs to be playing more regularly. So I think he will be pushing for a move away in January if he doesn't get more football. Chelsea won't want to lose him, as Frank Lampard said. But it'd be interesting to see where he goes. I've seen West Ham link with him. I think it'll be a great move for him. I think someone like Arsenal should be looking at him. As I spoke about, I know he's been there before. I don't think it'll happen because Arsenal probably wouldn't take him back, and Chelsea probably won't want to sell him the arrival. But he's the type of player that could really come in and make a difference there. And you look at Arsenal, it's a different kind of option to what they have. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to Giroud's future. But again, very underrated player and a big goal for Chelsea. And they obviously rest a few players as well with one eye on the weekend's game against Spurs. So brilliant week for them. Be interesting to see how they go on Sunday. We're going to get that later in the show. So moving on to Thursday's action, Europa League. Thought that I watched the first early games. I've seen Arsenal. I've seen bits of Arsenal's game, bits of Celtic's game. I just try to keep an eye on all the teams. What I've seen of Arsenal was very straightforward one. Molde must have a great chance at 0-0. Apart from that, they never really threatened. Arsenal seemed to control the game. And in Europe, they've been pretty good. Results, they've been scoring goals. So it's almost like a different type of performances they've been putting in Europe. Now, obviously, the groups are probably an easier standard. But still saying that you can only beat what's in front of you, and they've won 4 games and they've secured qualification. Fully expecting to top the group as well. So again, Arteta will be very, very happy in these last 2 games. You can have a look at these young lads who's come on some of the games. You look at Balogun, scored the 3rd goal last night. Looks really impressive. I have to say, I've heard a lot about him from a couple of my friends at Arsenal men, and also just from reading reports, he seems to be highly rated around England. With Arsenal's problems at the minute up front, obviously Aubameyang's been playing left wing. It's interesting to see if they start playing up front. I know he played up front against Leeds. It was a central striker. Be interested to see if they stick with that, because like I said, looks short of confidence. I've seen Paul Merson speaking about this week where you almost feel in the game he sulks, and when things aren't going his way, he just looks really unhappy. He never seems to be smiling. And almost I've seen him say when the board goes up for the substitution, he almost knows it's going to be him around the 60th or 70th minute, and then he just trods off his shoulders down. So he just looks really unhappy at the moment. For me, he's never really lived up to that price tag. As I said, he scored some goals, but he's never really been that striker Arsenal can rely on. I do think Arteta will be looking to move him on in the summer. I think his contract is running down. He's 29 as well, so I think Arsenal will be keen to try and get some funds from him. And Kerry has also been given chances. He's been like the second striker. He's not really taken them. He's done okay, but he seems to be doing his best football for the England under 21 team, scoring loads of goals. When it comes to Arsenal, he just doesn't seem to have that cutting edge. So there's a possible chance that Balogun could get a run on the team. You think back a few years ago when Harry Kane You had Adebayor and Soldado there, and they weren't really scoring. So Spurs had to try and look for goals elsewhere. And Kane was performing in Europa League, got his chance in the league and scored that goal against Aston Villa. And the rest is really history now. He's really established himself as one of the best strikers in the world. So I'm not saying that's going to happen for Balogun, but you just never know with these chances. If he gets a chance, if he was to come on Sunday and score the winning goal against Wolves, then surely he would get more opportunity. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Um, Probably will be surprised if he did make a score on Sunday, but he can use these next two games in the Europa League to try and get on the Arteta's plans for the Premier League, because I'm sure he will be resting a lot of players knowing the qualification secured. So looking at Arsenal's rivals, Tottenham, obviously I watched this game even a Spurs fan, and they played Lutter Goretz. And I have to say, I think this is one of the worst teams I've ever seen in the Europa League. They were really, really poor. I spoke about it on the show last week on the first game. Spurs so comfortable away from home. They won 3-1, could have scored more goals. I think they scored with their only shot in the game. It was a deflection. And they actually didn't even have a shot in this game last night. Not a shot in the whole game. So not just a shot on target, not a shot on the whole game, which I've never ever seen before, to be honest. They never, I don't think they got near our penalty area. It was like a training session. It was so embarrassing. I was actually embarrassed that we ran it. But like I said, we do deserve a medal after last season's performance, but it was really, really poor. And it does go back to the point I said on last week's show. Why not have, a condensed format for these competitions? Why not have 16 teams in each competition? Surely it would make it much more competitive. Because games like that you look at the Arsenal game, you look at the Spurs game, really, really weren't competitive. It's so easy for both Spurs and Arsenal. Spurs should have scored a lot more goals than they did. On the game, after the game last night, I was listening to BT Sport and they were raving about Dele Alli. For me, he did all right. He played okay. Yeah, he influenced the game. He scored a few goals, set up a few goals. But it was a really, really poor standard. And if he isn't performing against them sort of teams, then I would be asking questions. So I wouldn't be getting carried away with that performance by Dele Alli. Really poor opposition. They're sitting bottom of the group, 0 points. So for Spurs, they're sitting on 9 points. Yeah, strong position. But Antwerp's also on 9 points, and Lask's on 6 points. And they played with their regrets as well. So you would expect them. They won them 2 games. So not easy for Spurs. Spurs are going to have to win at least one more game in this group to qualify. If they won that game away to last next, yes, they will be qualified. So Mourinho will go out there with a strong team, I would imagine. And then hoping in the last game at home we can rest a few players with qualification secured. Because we spoke about it, we've got big games coming up. If you look at all the teams, Spurs have definitely got the hardest run now coming up in the next 5-6 weeks. Really, really tough games against all the teams you would expect to be in the top 6 or 7. So he'll really want to be focused on that and get this European qualification secured in the next game. Last team in England, Leicester, really strong again. Really strong campaign. They've got 10 points. They're qualified. From what I hear, this was a really entertaining game. Wasn't really watching this because the Spurs game was not at the same time. But a 3-3 draw. Jamie Vardy coming off the bench, 95th minute, getting that goal. A fantastic player, really underrated. We're talking about a player that's 34, 35, still producing goals, which is fantastic at his age. He's really, really key to Leicester. I think there's an argument they could put on as Leicester's greatest ever player, to be honest. He's been that important to them. And Leicester will have better days, as I said, after Sunday. Still going to be a threat. Most teams this year in that top 4, top 6, getting on it. And I think in Europe as well, they could go really far in this competition. There'll be a lot of teams looking to avoid them. They should finish top spot in the group now. With the 2 games they have coming up, fully expect they finish top and probably get a favourable draw in the next round. So there'll be a lot of teams fearing them. A lot of teams, Leicester will feel they can beat a lot of these teams and get far in this competition. So keep an eye on that one. They could be dark horses. They won this thing. I'm sure if Spurs or Arsenal play them, they would really, really think it's a difficult game. So if Spurs and Arsenal thinking that, I'm sure there's a lot of teams around Europe thinking that. So disappointing nights for Celtic and Dundalk. Celtic are out after a 4-1 defeat by Slavia Prague or Sparta Prague. They actually beat them 4-1 as well in the last game. So it's been a really disappointing campaign for Neil Lennon's side. But I did speak about it in the last show. Going into this game, I think Celtic probably already knew their fit. There's no way they're going to turn it around really. So I think they'll just be glad it's over now. And the last 2 games are basically dead rubbers. So they don't really have to focus too much on them. They'll probably rest players for the league campaign because they're playing catch up at Rangers. I think between now and the 2nd of January when they play Rangers again, they need to take maximum points. And hope Rangers maybe drop a couple going into that game because at the minute Rangers are looking really strong. And last night they got a really good result as well. I'm going to speak about. So Celtic for me, they'll be happy in a way they're out now because they can focus on the league. But in general, yeah, it was a difficult group before the group started. But they'll be really disappointed with how they done them 4 games, only taking 1 point. And they would have thought going into it, they would have had at least an outside chance of getting through in this group, but it hasn't happened. Moving on, Dundalk, Really found it difficult last night again. We spoke about it. Probably the most likely chance of getting points. That didn't happen. Missed a big chance of 2-0 with a penalty. Get back on it. But I have to say, the goals Vienna scored were quite good. And it did show the level of quality still between Dundalk and teams in this competition. But I think they haven't really been hammered on it. The 3-0 was the most they've been beat by Arsenal. So they have done themselves proud, despite not getting a point so far. They have done really well, and with their season over, they can probably take the last two games a bit more serious than Celtic can because they haven't got any other commitments at the moment. So they'll be trying to get at least 1-1 in this group before it finishes. I think that's unlikely. Away to Molde and home to Arsenal will be very difficult to get that result. But I have to say, well done them. They've done Ireland really proud so far, and the games they've had a chance in every one of them games. Just fine margins at this level, and hopefully they're back on it again next year, and they're better off for that experience. The last game they focused on was Rangers. Brilliant result for them, 2-2. They'll be disappointed being 2-0 up. 10 minutes to go, they didn't close it out. But as Gerrard said rightly after the game, this is a team that could be in the Champions League. So over the two games, Celtic got two draws against them. They've done really, really well. Sitting on 8 points now in the group, and you would fully expect them to qualify. They're 5 points clear of third with two games to go, so they only need a draw to qualify. But I'm sure Rangers will have eyes on the top prize as well. And it'll be interesting to see again how this affects titles in Scotland now. Celtic won't have any other commitments bar the cups in Scotland, where Rangers will have games in February as well if they qualify in the Europa League. So that's your European roundup. Going to move on now and look at the big game at the weekend, which is Chelsea against Spurs. I'm just going to focus on Chelsea because I didn't really touch on them in the last show, but I thought they've had a really, really good start to the season. I think they a wee bit sluggish at the start. They were leaking a lot of goals despite scoring. They were involved in 2-3-3 draws with Southampton and West Brom. Probably looking back on them results, and probably think should have done better, should have closed out the games. We've seen that with Spurs, with a 3-3 draw against West Ham too. That's going to happen. But speaking about both teams, they seem to have really defensively improved over these last 4 weeks. Since they've been involved in them 3-3 draws, they seem to have maybe a bit more cautious, and they've worked out a balance between going forward and defending as well. Instead of just going all out attack, they seem to be a bit more cautious, and it seems to be working for them. I think with Chelsea, Ziyech coming back from injury has been a massive, massive boost. He seems to really have an impact in these games. And I'm expecting a really, really tough game on Saturday or on Sunday. For Spurs. Mason Mount is somebody I want to speak about as well. I think he's been harshly treated by the English media. You look at this whole debate about him and Grealish, who's better. They're different players for me. There's no reason why both of them can't play, but Mount's he's been excellent this season for Chelsea. And Gareth Southgate's talk a lot of stick for playing him. But he's been impressive for me. You think about that pass. He set up Callum Hudson-Odoi for the goal in that week. Brilliant pass, and it was almost Fabregas-esque as I've seen on Twitter. So he's definitely got quality, and he's definitely going to improve. And Southgate does seem to fancy him as well for England. And Lampard really fancies him for Chelsea. He plays a lot of the games. Fully expecting to start this game on Sunday as well. If you look at Chelsea in terms of their firepower, there's an argument they've got one of the best in the league as well, because you look at Werner, you look at Abraham, there's goals in them too. You look at Ziyech, scored loads of goals for Ajax. He's been really, really strong since he started for Chelsea as well. Assists, goals. Pulisic, he was brilliant last year until he got injured. He's actually going to be fit for this game as well. I was listening to Frank Lampard's press conference today. So that's a big boost for Chelsea. You think about Havertz, he's only been on the fringes as they come on. He's a young player, but he's a really, really talented player. So you look at them players, and you speak about Mount as well. There's a lot of goals in that Chelsea team, and a lot of competition for places, which is healthy as well, because everybody wants to be playing. And I spoke about it in the last show. I think Chelsea's going to have a really, really strong season. And if you think about anyone that's going to challenge Liverpool, I really do think it could be them, based on their squad depth. Now, it'll be interesting to see if there's question marks about Lampard and the experience of being able to handle a situation like this. But so far, he's been doing well. I think this is a massive game for Lampard on Sunday. I think it's a bigger game for Chelsea than it is for Spurs, based on that Spurs got the result last week, and Spurs are also 2 points clear of them in the league. If Spurs really won and go 5 points clear, that would give them a significant gap. I know it's not a massive gap, but it's a decent cushion at this stage of the season. And as well, Chelsea would have played Spurs and Liverpool at home, so they'd have to play them both away in the second half of the season. So you would expect that to be a lot more difficult as well. So I think it's a game that Chelsea will be really looking to win. If they can't win it, definitely don't lose it. So it will add to the tension. And I'm going to get into my prediction as well, because I'm going to preview this game, so I'm going to do it now. I think it's going to be quite a cautious game. Now, I know everyone's sort of looking at it as a big game of the weekend, and I'm sure everyone will be watching it 4:30 on Sunday on Sky Sports. But I think it's a game that both managers really won't want to lose, so they'll not overcommit. We know Mourinho is a quite a cautious manager anyway, and Spurs do seem to be having the go about his way instead of the Spurs way to get these results. We've seen at the start of the season, Spurs were involved in high scoring games and they were dropping silly points against teams they're expected to beat. Since they sort of going back to that sort of really cautious approach, they've been winning the games. And Spurs fans, yes, they'll complain about it. But when they're winning games, that is the most important thing. And for me, when you're winning games, no one really is going to be complaining because Spurs really won this game and still be negative in the way they approach. That won't matter to Spurs fans. They haven't got a great record away at Chelsea. We've only won there once in the last 27 years. I think, or 27, 28 years. So you're looking at a really, really, really tough place for Spurs to go. And we're speaking about that mentality issue with Spurs having. Will they be going there with that result and with that record in the back of their heads? I'm sure they will, but they will think back to a few years ago when they won at Stamford Bridge, and they have some positive memories there as well. It's a really hard game to call. Um, my, my heart says Spurs are going to win the game, but my head tells me it's going to be a draw. I think Spurs will be able to manage to get that draw because I think Chelsea will have a lot more firepower than Man City, in my opinion. Their players are more informed and confidence. They probably have a lot more confidence as well. But I do think Spurs can get at Chelsea as well. They will leave gaps as well for Spurs to exploit. And the way Harry Kane's playing, I think if he gets a chance, he'll take it. The way Son's playing, if he gets a chance, he'll take it. I think it'll be a cautious but still decent game to watch. Tactically, it'll be fascinating. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, which would be a really, really good result for Spurs. And it wouldn't be the worst result in the world for Chelsea. I think if you offered both teams a draw now, they'd probably take it. But Chelsea will be the team. If it does get to the last 15, 20 minutes and it is 0-0 or 1-1, they probably will be the team trying to force it. Does leave possible gaps for Spurs to try and win it as well. So it a really interesting game. I'm going for a 1-1 draw. Really looking forward to it. If Spurs really won this game, I think you'd see a lot of Spurs fans as well talking more about this title chat. But again, we need to keep the lid on it. If Chelsea are going to win the league or even seriously challenge for it, this is a game they can't lose for me. So 4:30 on Sunday, make sure you're watching it. Going to be going through the result on Monday and where it went wrong for one team, or maybe we're talking about a draw. So really looking forward to it. Moving on, I'm going to look at this week's predictions now. Rest of the games, we've got big games coming up. Southampton against United. I'm really looking forward to that one. That's before the Chelsea and Spurs game at 2 o'clock. I'm going to be sitting down to watch that, and I'm also going to be looking at Arsenal and Wolves again after that Spurs Chelsea game. 3 big games on Sunday. Massive games, I think, in context for the season for a lot of them teams as well. So, weekend starts tonight, Friday night, first game of the season. It's actually live, first game of the weekend. It's actually live on Amazon Prime if you have it. Crystal Palace are playing Newcastle, 8 o'clock kickoff. Hard to call. Newcastle are going to be stubborn, hard to break down, like they are every single week. They don't seem to adopt their style for whoever they play. To be give Steve Bruce a bit of credit, they do seem to get them results from time to time. And I don't really expect them to win a relegation battle as well. But I just question where they're going, and Newcastle fans probably think they could do better. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Steve Bruce maybe towards the end of the season. Is he going to maybe step down and let somebody else take over? I think we Mike Ashley, he'll be quite happy to just keep them in the league, and if they're not in the Championship, if they're in the Premier League, it don't really matter how they're getting results. Crystal Palace, Zaha's missing as well. He missed them last week against Burnley. You look at the chances they had against Burnley. I think if Zaha was on the pitch, they score them chances. As far as I know, he's not back for this game. It makes it a really, really difficult game to call. But someone tells me Palace are going to bounce back and get the one in this game, so I've gone for a 2-1 victory. So moving on to Saturday, 12:30, Brighton against Liverpool. I spoke about it earlier in the show. I think Liverpool is a big game they're looking forward to coming back to. I think if it was a Burnley away, it would be a really tough game to come back to. But Brighton away, they're going to probably be open enough. They don't really defend under Potter, which I like. They're a really good team to watch. They probably just lack a wee bit of quality, and they lack a wee bit of cutting edge up front. They scored enough goals. Great one out last time against Villa, but Lamptey's missing. Picked up a really cheap 2 yellow cards against Aston Villa. Quite harsh, but again, it was silly. I think he's going to be a massive miss. Having said that, I think if he was playing, I would have still fancied Liverpool anyway. But I think we have him not playing, it really does give Brighton mountain to climb in this game. So I've gone for a 3-0 Liverpool 1. I expect Mane and Jota to come back in and then both they score as well. Moving on to 3 o'clock on Saturday, Man City are playing Burnley. Both these games have on BT Sport, by the way, Brighton game and the Man City game. Burnley can be quite stubborn, but if you look at the recent scores against these two teams, Man City's aggregate scores actually 22-1. They beat them 5-0 at home back in June. It was in Project Restart. Now again, Man City aren't playing and scoring a lot of goals a minute, but if there's ever a game they're going to start scoring goals, I think this will be the game as well. I'm going to go for a 3-0 Man City one. And I think that'll be a quite comfortable victory in the end. Moving on to half 5 on Saturday. Now, this is a game I'm really looking forward to watching. I think this could be the most entertaining game of the weekend, to be honest. Everton's taking on Leeds, two teams that love to attack, love to go forward. Both their strengths are attacking. Both teams have conceded a lot of goals in the league this season, so I fully expect both teams to go at it. And I'm expecting a really, really good game for the neutral. Just speaking of it, I really enjoy watching both these teams. I watched Everton against Fulham last week. It was on BBC One. Really, really good game of football. They probably, in the end, were a bit fortunate they won it because they were so good in the first half. Could have been 4-5-1 up. And then second half, just maybe the game fizzled out for them a bit. And then Fulham come on quite strong. Lost a penalty in the end, which would have got them a draw. So it's just about finding that consistency for 90 minutes now for Everton. Get back to the way they were the first few games of the season. Great to see Calvert-Lewin back on the score sheet. Expecting to get on it again. But I fancy Leeds to get something in this game, so I've gone for a 2-2 draw. So make sure to watch this one. I really think it's going to be a classic. Now, Saturday, 8 o'clock, West Brom's playing Sheffield United. I actually shared something on Facebook last night, so make sure to check this out if you haven't seen it. It was a game between Sheffield United and West Brom. I think it was 2004, and it was in the Championship, where it was the only game in the professional English football where a game had to be abandoned because there wasn't enough players to continue the game. Sheffield United actually finished the game with 6 players, which seems absolutely madness. But there was a few bad tackles in the game. Sheffield United actually went down to 8 men, and then there was a lot of controversy around it because 2 players went off with injury. Then now there was accusations that Neil Warnock forced them to go off, and it was muscle injuries. He was actually cleared of any wrongdoing. The game actually finished with 10 minutes to go, 3-0 to West Brom. West Brom actually requested that they got the points for the game, and yes, they were awarded the win. The game was stopped 10 minutes early as Sheffield United only had 6 players on the pitch. So if you check it out, there were some really, really nasty tackles on it. So check it out. It's on my Facebook page, and it's also on Sky Sports' page. It's called The Battle of Bramble Lane. It'll be interesting to see if we get a summer game at the Hawthorns on Saturday evening. I would seriously doubt it. I think this is going to be a really, really cautious game. Both teams, yet they won a game this season. So it's the perfect opportunity to get off the mark. But again, I think this is going to be really, really cautious. Both teams really won't want to lose this game. Not just for the fact of creating more negativity around them, but it's the fact of giving a relegation rival 3 points. So for that reason, again, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. And I don't think it'll be a classic, to be honest. So moving on to Sunday, 2 o'clock. Start at Southampton against Manchester United. I'm really looking forward to this game. I think it could be a really open game as well. Southampton, I spoke about them the last week on the show, how they're 4th in the table since November last year. So again, no run of form. This is a really strong team who have been getting points consistently over the last 12 months. Danny Ings is a massive miss. They got a great result away from home against Wolves in midweek. That was Monday night it was. In the end, very unlucky not they won it. Probably had the better chances. But again, I think Danny Ings missing is a massive, massive one. And I think if he was playing this game, they would probably get a result. United are looking for a club record. I think it's 8 consecutive away won. And I'm actually backing them to get it. I think they're going to do it. And it would be a massive result as well if they were to do it. Going for a 2-1 Manchester United 1. Moving on to the big one, 4:30. I spoke about that game already. Chelsea Spurs, 1-1 draw I've gone for. Arsenal Wolves follows this as well. I think this is on Sky Sports, 7:15. And again, I think it's going to be a really, really cautious game from both teams. Arsenal aren't scoring a lot of goals. Again, Wolves be quite conservative away from home, and it's worked for them against some of these bigger teams. I was reading that they've only lost 1 of their last 8 away games against a top 6 team. So it shows you the challenge is facing Arsenal. Again, I'm humming and hawing about this result, but I've gone for a 0-0 draw. Just Arsenal aren't scoring goals in the Premier League, and Wolves will be quite happy to sit back. And I think even if it is 0-0 going into the last 10 minutes, Wolves won't overcome it. They'll be happy to take their point. Whereas maybe someone like a Leicester would try and win the game. I think Wolves will be quite content, and they'll be really, really hard to break down. I think an early goal for Arsenal would change the game. But if they don't get that, I'm going to go for a 0-0 draw. And for me, Arsenal really need to start winning games. So it'll be interesting to see if they do. if it goes to the last 10 or 15 minutes, will they really go for the gauntlet and really try and win the game? Um, Moving on to Monday, football's not the best, but Leicester take on Fulham, 5:30, Sky Sports. Fulham just can't seem to get ones. They're scoring goals, but they're letting on too many. I really like Fulham to watch as well. They don't sit back. They go and try and win games. Scott Parker, yes, probably an experience, but they're trying to go about it the right way. In the end, they'll probably not be enough. They probably haven't got the quality to stay in this league. But they're going to have, if they're going to go down, they're going to go down fighting. Away to Leicester, really, really hard game. Leicester have had some trouble at home winning these type of games, but I think they're going to win this one. I'm going for a 2-0 win. Last game of the weekends, West Ham against Villa. Now, we didn't have Gary Neville on the show last week, but he is on the show this week with Jamie Carragher. So, again, that'll be fascinating to watch them too, talking about the weekend results. They're always great to watch. So, they'll be on before the show and after the show. West Ham playing Villa. I've gone for a Villa 2-1-1. I think these are the games that suit Villa away from home. Against these teams, will come at them and try and attack them. They've got the players on the counter attack. They hurt them. West Ham are going well, but I think they could succumb to defeat here the West Ham. So I've gone for 2-1 Villa 1. And that wraps up the show for this week. Going to be back on Monday with a guest on the show. We're going to be going through all the weekend's results, and we're going to be looking ahead again to the European games coming up as we hit the crunch time in these games. I know a lot of teams are through, but they will be trying to top their groups as well. So thanks for listening, and stay tuned as always. Thank you.